Welcome to Expedient Means with Lin Wei on Tom Monk Radio. Lin currently resides in China and is the founder and head teacher of Guizhen Philocultural Society. He has extensive experience in Buddhist and Taoist meditation, Qigong, martial arts, and traditional Chinese medicine. To learn more about Lin, please visit his website at www.guizhenhui.net. Tonight, Lin will be speaking about understanding detachment. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back again, Lin.
Hey.
So detachment. First of all, let's just talk a little bit about what detachment means.
Well, there's a lot of scrutiny on the word on detachment, as cutting off everything, leaving the whole world behind, leaving the whole world behind in the manner of screw everybody else, I'm going to go doing my thing. But before we go a little further, I'm again in my office. In the evening, we have classes going, so we may have some students running in the office or some background noise. Let everybody know. Just sorry about that. Hope you can just get past a little of the background noise.
We'll forgive you.
Oh, thank you so much. So detachment. Well, there is this notion that it's to be anti-joy, against the happiness, against the pleasure, against any kind of good feeling, good emotion, affirmations of goodness, and all the fun stuff, fluffy stuff, we think. And even the putting down all the negative things and getting rid of all these kind of emotions, whether good or bad emotions, cutting off the world, to screw everybody, I'm doing my own deal, kind of situation, this is my pudding and you can't have it, kind of thing. It's not really like that at all. And when I say really like that, meaning it's not like that at all. I mean, that's not the focus. That's not the point, to just take everything, throw it out, and sit there and practice until, the day is over and whatnot. The focus is to have no other obstruction in the mind. Okay? So that means if I'm meditating and I have a piece of hair, a strand of hair tickling my nose, okay, from the moment I start, meaning I know the thing is there tickling my nose. It's tickling my nose at that moment. So I'm sitting there and I'm meditating and it's tickling my nose and I'm trying to get deep into focus, deep into practice, and I'm itching my nose. It's just obstructing me. So either I cut the hair off or I brush it back. It's just very simple. Brushing it back means I put it in a position where it's not going to be an obstruction, meaning I don't have to worry about it. And that's what we focus on when we're doing our cultivation, meaning in the matter of detachment, we are taking things and not putting them in the back burner, but understanding why we had an attachment to them, why we felt they were important, and getting to the cause of that view we had about those things. Thus, finding their function and seeing that it took away our energy. It created an outflow or a leakage in our energy and in our, just basically in our being. We felt drained or taken by it or enamored or not enamored, but, totally engulfed by it. And then we decide, oh, well, why would I want that to happen? Oh, now I'm sorry, everyone. We're going to have an influx of students coming in and out. So, just be aware, be prepared for, loud noises.
We'll just remain in a detached state, I guess.
I'll try to talk as much, but you will have some background noise, so.
Okay. One of the things I was going to say or get you to talk about was why the mind is always grasping, why the mind always wants to be attached to something, whether it be sex or money. And when you do finally achieve a detached state, the mind just sort of moves on to the next thing that it wants to attach to. It's almost like it's a crutch.
Think of it like a fish out of water. Okay, a fish needs water in order to live. So our mind is just like that. We take the fish out of water and it flaps all over the place, flopping all over the ground, whatnot, and then it dies. Well, our mind is like that, or the function of false thinking is like that. Okay, when we stop applying our focus to everything we're used to, meaning daydreaming, emotions, thinking of what we're going to do in 2 minutes, thinking of who's going to call me later or what's going to happen. Basically, everyone gets the idea. Our mind goes crazy because it's not having that as nourishment anymore. So we're chasing after all these thoughts. It's like this. I can't breathe anymore. I have to go on. I have to get something. And we feel like it's unbearable to a degree. It becomes almost unbearable. But that's the idea. We're trying to limit the feeding to these flippant thoughts. Eventually, they hit a high point, and it feels like they're so strong where we almost can't take it, and then they hit the low point. The low point in this aspect is that they become less and less of a nuisance in our mind. They stop kind of influencing us, but it's still there. That's why we got to keep going deeper and keep applying ourselves in concentration, meditation, or practice, and then the dust eventually disappears. It doesn't settle anymore. It just disappears over time.
So you said a mind without attachments is like a fish out of water. Would it be more accurate to maybe say an ego without attachments is like a fish out of water?
Well, an ego is like another state, meaning it's another mannerism the mind has for attaching or grasping. Okay, there's the I view, the view that I am this, I am godlike, or I am a great, wonderful person, or a great, wonderful being who is truly liberated and truly free. It's this kind of idea that we create attachments on, something being a little bit more superior. So what I'm saying is not that the detached mind is like a fish out of water. It's the process, the mind, or the attached mind, or the false thinking mind, or the conscious mind goes through. It goes through the stages of as though it's a fish out of water, trying to grasp, trying to get as much as it can before it fully dies out.
You said false thinking, that word, and I know somebody who was following some of your work had a question. We use this term all the time. What exactly does false thinking mean?
Oh man, I forgot. I'm kidding. False thinking basically is that which takes us out of our state of stillness. Meaning, what is a state of stillness anyway? Well, I'm speaking a little bit more deeply about it, but we'll chop this out and we'll go to the more simpler aspect. False thinking is all our desires of greed, anger, ignorance, lust, anything that keeps us focusing on the external things or external stimulants, and then anything that makes us think trivial things about our internal experiences, things we experience when we're dreaming, or things we experience when we're by ourselves, all the thinking we do and all that stuff. So these are false thinking, things that take us away from the true. Okay? What is the true? Well, that depends on how you can cultivate and how you can realize what true is. It's not that the truth or the overall true way of the world is dependent upon someone's views. If that's the case, then they're not really getting the true end of the world, or the true outlook of, or the true mannerism of what the world is like. Okay? So the overall truth does not need one's viewpoints to justify it or prove it. Okay? It just is that way.
One of the natural byproducts of cultivation seems to be a more detached state of being. I'm not going to say 100% or fully detached, but it just seems to arise naturally that you are less moved by things that you used to normally be moved by. And sometimes the people in your life, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, start to think of you as a cold person, and they think of it as a negative thing. Why do you think that is?
Well, because think of this: you're in a crowd, you're in a crowded room, and everyone's drinking champagne, and you decide you don't want to drink champagne, you want to drink tea. Well, they're going to think you to be arrogant, they think you to be selfish, and think you to be stepping out of the domain of how everyone's going to communicate and relate with each other. So they're going to hold viewpoints about you. It's the same thing. From my own personal experience too, when I didn't have that movement or grasping feeling for specific things that people have usually felt as important to them, they felt me to be cold. They felt me to be indifferent to them. When in fact it was not indifference. It was just there was no need for me. There was no attachment. There was no pulling for me or grasping state in my mind or in this mannerism to bother myself with the concerns of how they had felt to be concerned. So they held views against it. Basically, you're not part of the crowd. You're not part of the group. People will view you as strange, weird, delusional, the myriad amounts of things you could think of. That's what they'll think of you as. It's just because you're not playing into the whole realm of things. Just like your own mind, when you are not bothered by certain stimulants that used to bother you when you're meditating, okay, your mind will start creating this dialogue. Your conscious mind will create this dialogue that states, what you're doing, you used to be like this. You used to pay attention to this. You should pay attention to it. And you start feeling as though you should start focusing. Okay? And if the moment you do focus, they get you. So if before everyone was drinking Coca-Cola all the time when they go out to dinner and you decide to drink some hot water, they all make fun of you, trying to make you feel like you should be part of them. Like, oh, how are you drinking this? What's wrong with you? You're silly. You're stupid. You're out of this. You're thinking on a different world. You know, you're totally crazy or weird or strange. And those statements from these kinds of people, these people, would be to make you feel as though you are not part of their group, and you should become part of them. You should go back to doing the things they do, so they can feel as though they have turned you and they have the power over you to make you succumb to what they feel is right. Okay? So basically, that's what it is. When you step out of the usual pattern of how people are, they view you as being strange, superstitious, a little just out of your mind, a little crazy. Okay? They think those things of you. It's not true, but that's just how they think. Because they themselves are attached. They themselves are stuck in that mannerism, stuck in the cycle of their own false thinking, which is basically them thinking that they are more superior.
Do you think
everyone does those things? That's why.
Do you think they would see you as a threat because you question their worldview type thing?
Pretty much. You're questioning without questioning. Your actions and experiences and example is a threat to them because they themselves don't know what to think of you. Okay, they themselves will sit there going, well, this person's acting this way, they're crazy, they're stupid, because they themselves don't want to admit or don't want to investigate, is this actually a good thing? And if it is, I don't want to do it because it's like being weird. Think of the people who call others nerds, think of the nerds, quote-unquote nerds. Their studies, they focus in their studies, they're really, really focused and really good at what they're doing. Whether it's science or math or whatnot. They're very smart in what they do. They don't follow the same path everyone does, so they focus on specific things that they find is good for their own life. That itself causes other people to say these people are boring, they're nerds, they're weird, they're skeevy and stuff like that. And it's because they're not in the norm of things. They're not in the way others think. That itself is a great example of being attached to things out there in the world.
So let's bring the concept of detachment to meditation. How does one maintain a detached state while in meditation?
It's not that one has to get into the mind state of being detached, because then that itself would be false thinking. It's just that through practice, remember,
tricky.
The way things are phrased, okay, it's not that you're wrong. That's exactly how you should have phrased it. That's just the way it is known for everybody. Okay? But understand that the mannerism needs commentary. The statement or the phrase needs a commentary, because the wording is the trick. The wording is the key that lets someone go, oh, that's how it is. You need that kind of small epiphany that goes, oh my God, that's what it is. And that can help you help to be a catalyst. So it's not that you get into a state of being detached and saying, okay, now I'm detached, I'm going to go meditate, or now I'm detached, I can focus more. No, not at all. It's over a period of time of applying your mind to one thing. Not many things, one thing. It could be your breathing. It can be a specific focal point in your body or energetic body. It can be a phrase. It can be an image, whatnot. The constant application eventually ends up in a state of non-discrimination. That means your false thinking or your flippant thinking or your discriminating thinking, that aspect of the mind eventually wears down, eventually loses juice. The car stops and sits there. Eventually the air in the tires go out, the metal wears down, and the metal starts to disintegrate, and there's no body of the car, now it's just the seats and the interior of the car, and then that starts to break down. Over a longer period of time, the car just disappears. That's what it is like in the mind when you're cultivating. That's detachment. It just goes on its own. But because you're applying your mind, okay, it can do that. It won't just go out on its own without you doing anything. You can't drive a car unless you're in the car to drive it.
So I guess that's why, say, Chan wants you to focus on, say, a riddle or something, and Vipassana wants you to focus on your breath, as opposed to just totally trying to cut everything off instantly It's just trying to bring everything down to the one, and then from there it's easier to get to that, I don't want to say detached state, but
it is a pathway, right? It's a pathway of the gradual practice. Remember, gradual practice is the overall progress. You know, you're going through the stages, overall progress of getting to your end result. The end result's attainment is itself spontaneous. It is itself sudden. So the sudden and gradual path of cultivation is based on the individual, and it's part of its own process. So they are hand in hand. I mean, the Chan holding on to the Huatou and the Vipassana holding on to the breath is actually the same meditation, because you have to breathe when you're doing meditation in Chan. Okay? And in Vipassana, the focus is your breathing. Then you'll get to a point that you'll realize there's no one really breathing. So you're attaining the states in both practices. You're attaining the same thing in both practices, just using a different method. You know? That's how you can skin. There's many ways to skin the cat, but you're eventually just skinning the cat anyway.
And then I would imagine as a byproduct of that, you're, without even trying, carrying that detachment into your normal life.
Yes, it just becomes a habit. And when I say habit, I don't mean it in the usual sense of habit. It becomes the way it is. It is just this way, that there is no running after everything. But we are taken by our senses. And that aspect of being taken by our senses makes us believe that things have to be this way of being taken by our senses, meaning, oh, I have the feeling for sex, I have to go and have sex. You know, I have to go buy clothes because that's what I do when I feel anxious or I feel worried or I feel sad. I got to go shopping, you know, or I need to drink coffee in the morning because I don't feel enough young energy. You know, I don't feel that young being, that burst of jumpy energy in the morning. You know, stuff like that. We attach certain views because we think these things result in what we are looking for. When in truth, it's not that we have to result in what we're looking for. It's just that we don't have the energy, so we want to drink the coffee. It's just that way. We don't have to add more to it, you know?
I'll throw you a curveball. Throw you a curveball here.
Your curveballs are pretty curvy.
Well, how does one balance detachment with compassion?
Very, very good. Very good. Balancing detachment and compassion. Compassion has nothing to do with detachment. Compassion has everything to do with the overall way everything is just. Okay? Well, how is everything just? Well, when you take away or strip away all the views that we hold, basically detaching from all the views that we've been brought up on and we ourselves created and accepted from everything else around us, when you take those things away, you realize one thing. You realize that we're all the same thing. There is no real difference. Truly, there is no true difference about each and every single living being out there in this whole entire thing out there. Okay? So right then and there, you automatically have that realization of compassion. Compassion does not mean you are attached to some state of I must help everybody. Compassion is an overall I'm trying to get the right words here or phrase things properly. It's a total straight up understanding that all things are connected. All things are one. That's compassion. Anything outside of that is not. It's detachment. So, it's attachment, not detachment. It's attachment. So, detachment is just a realization that we are all one thing. There's no reason for these views of superiority, the views of a self, you know, an ego, a personality, a lifespan, all these things. There's no reason for those things. So when those things are stripped, there's an overall, and you're not going to treat anyone in a terrible way, or the way you've done before, or the way everyone else treats each other. You won't. There's a certain regard for people, a certain regard of a kindness. It's manifested as a kindness, but don't think that it's an attachment to that. It's not. It simply is just the way that is, a total. You know what? Instead of me trying to intellectualize this so everyone could get the basic idea, how about people just imagine the world without views? What is the world without your view of the world? That means without your view of how you view people, your family, yourself, and the whole entire way the world is and the universe and all your understandings that you ever attained and ever read and accepted since childhood. What is the world without all that? Don't assume the world is going to be boring, because that still is a viewpoint, because you're still holding on a viewpoint of what you consider to be boring. And then you have to go deeper as to What made you believe that that way is boring? Okay? So, it's simply the world without views.
I was
And
just gonna.
then you'll understand what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna say, perhaps detachment or detached state is more of a mental thing or a mind concept, whereas compassion would be more of a heart concept. Maybe that's oversimplification. I don't know.
It is still breaking up the idea. They're not separate. Okay, detachment is that you understand that there is something more, and we're just really chasing and wasting our energy going over our senses. Chasing what our senses give us, or what we are grasping at with our senses. That itself is compassionate, because you're like, I got to be better to myself. Why am I chasing after lustful images or lustful music, or enjoyable things? It's not wrong to have enjoyable things. They're not going to hurt you, but it's not going to make you better. It's not going to change things for you. It's just going to make you feel enjoyed. Again, too much enjoyment brings its opposite. So anywho, it's not that there's a heart aspect to it. It's just you already know that, or you are taking on the knowing that it is good of me to put down what I view so I can see the world as it is, and then you'll actually see people for who they truly are. And you'll find that there is no difference. Not no difference in how we view ourselves, meaning there is no difference at that fundamental overall state. And we call it the original nature. I don't want people to start bringing up the attachment of original sin, Oh, another one talks about original sin, this one talks about original nature. What the hell? Yeah, no. I'm saying at the state of being that does not need a state in order for it to be that way. It's simply without views, without attachment to views. Okay? That's the state. And that's what we're going to look at.
Okay.
It's compassionate and without attachments.
Just another thing I'm going to throw out there. Would that be why some of these crazy wisdom teachers do the crazy actions? Would it be because their students are still attached to views that say the master doesn't do this or the master should be that way? So then every now and then some of these crazy wisdom teachers will do something to shake that state out of them?
If those crazy wisdom teachers are enlightened, they would do some crazy-ass things to make their students flip out. I mean, I've done it to my students, not enlightened, but I mean, I have students students, African-American students, and many different other race students, and I make fun of them equally. And I make fun of myself. And I let them rank on me too. And not that I have to let them, but I let them know that it's okay to do that with me. Because the point is not to find enjoyment in ranking on each other. The point is, what are we holding views on? Okay? So when it comes down to certain people, I bring up very touchy things with them. And I let them have to go, this guy is freaking crazy. What the hell? And I'm waiting for them to turn around and start cursing me out. Because the point is, I want them to turn around and find, do they have an attachment to the way people view them? And then what do they view themselves as? And then I want them to chop it off. They know that's what I'm doing. But at the time, they don't realize it. And then finally, when they sit there with their eyes wide and their mouth, jaw dropped, going, oh my God, you just said that. I don't know how to answer you. And I look at them, I go, I bet you're not sure on how you should rebuttal, how you should turn back on me, right? I totally did not expect that. And they start laughing. And I start laughing. I said, the point is not that you received a remark. The point is how you are accepting that remark. What are your views about what I said about you to your face? In a way that people most likely will never tell you. The fact is, when you're here in my presence, it's like a mirror. You reflect me, I reflect you. So I'm going to reflect everything that you didn't think of, but that you face all the time because of the views you hold in your own mind. Until those views don't move you. Until your eyes don't widen. Not until you're used to it, but until there's not 1 ounce in your mind that says, you just said that to me. Oh my God. I don't want that in there either. And they just think, oh, now I understand. It's about me reflecting on how I view the normalcy of society, the way society treats each other, and the views society holds. Because that's how we have a makeup of our own entire views. That's what we are attached to, these views. So understanding detachment literally means understanding the methods and the processes of what leads to the release or the quote-unquote liberation from our discriminating mind.
Have you got any Buddhist stories or commentary from the sutra or anything you could elaborate on that might point to?
Man. Yeah. There was one in the Six Patriarchs Diamond Platform Sutra when one of Hui Neng's students were traveling around from one place to coming back to the temple, and on his travels, he seen a cultivator sitting in the forest meditating. So he walked over and he said to the man, and don't direct quote me, but this is the overall idea. He said to the cultivator, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm entering stillness." Then this conversation goes on where he says, how can you enter stillness? What is it that enters stillness? If you are practicing entering stillness and you're entering stillness, then you're not really being still when you're entering, are you? And the guy's sitting there going, what the hell? What? What the hell is that? Like, I have never heard a teaching like that before. It totally flipped him out. He goes, but when I'm in stillness, it's like I'm meditating and that's where I am. That's what I'm doing. He goes, well, you have to enter stillness. So there's an entering. There's a process of going into something. But as you're entering the stillness, imagine if there's a door that you have entered and the door inside that area is stillness. Your entering itself is not still. How are you entering any place that is still if you're entering? And the guy just totally got cut off. Like he hit a state that goes, what? Totally effed him up, basically, totally effed his mind up. And he just totally said, I've never heard a teaching like that. That's amazing. Who's your teacher? And he goes, my teacher is Huineng, the sixth patriarch of the Chan school. You should come and listen to his Dharma. And so the guy went out and he attained awakening at that point when he went to the sixth patriarch. And that's what happened. He realized that he wasn't entering stillness. He was actually still in his discriminating mind. There was no actual true entering into any stillness. It's the falling away or the dust settling and then dissipating and totally not there any longer or transforming. It's not that they go somewhere. It transforms. The vibration reaches a higher state. And there's no more of that defilement.
There's another story. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And again, it goes into this rivalry between the Buddhists and Taoists in a lot of these. So
I love this. I love these.
Yeah, ones. I know. I don't know if I should open that can of worms, but I guess I will.
You did already.
I know. So I guess I have to proceed. So the gist of the story is, and I don't know, you might know it better than I do. I don't really know the names of the people involved, but there was a Taoist monk who was renowned for his ability to meditate and still his mind, and he could go into meditative states for years. And he had gone into a cave somewhere and began meditating, and I don't know, supposedly meditated for, X amount of years. And when he came out of that state, he realized that rats had chewed his beard and hair off, and he basically flipped out at the thought that, his beautiful Taoist locks had been chewed up by these rats. And the commentary is basically that, he was able to still his mind, but, as soon as he came out of that state, he still had all these attachments. I don't know if you're familiar with that tale or not.
No, but I could just picture exactly what you're doing and understand it. There was still dust. He still had dust. Dust only settled. He didn't actually eradicate the dust. The dust wasn't eradicated. His false thinking mind wasn't eradicated. I'll use terms that are in the Buddhist nature, but understand that it's just language. It's not exclusive to only one specific school, meaning it's a Buddhist guy talking about, Taoism through a Buddhist lens. Sorry, that doesn't exist because I learned Taoist methods first in this lifetime. Later, 15 years later, found that it was very, very much the same as what I was learning with Chan, Pure Land, and Buddhist practices. So, don't take my word for it then. But, that's just my experience on things, and hopefully people find some value. If not, that's fine too. He didn't reach any further than just distilling the mind, gaining a state of stillness and comfort. He reached a high state of samadhi or a high deep state of concentration ability. He really entered a good state of stillness, but there was still dust. And when he got up, there was still attachment of the self. If he had woken up, he could have said, wow, my beard and my hair is gone. It's been eaten up. I hope the rats had their fill. Then there would have been some more attainment there.
Okay, so I guess maybe we could apply some of this to the real world. So it seems like in our modern society, it seems like there's so many attachments. Probably with technology and whatnot, it seems like the attachments just become more and more. Do you think our society is moving to a more attached state rather than a detached state?
Let's not look in terms of attachment and detachment. Because the habit itself has been here since numerous amounts of years. Myriad attachments are there. So let's not look at it in detachment or attachment. Let's look at it in terms of, basically let's flip it around. We'll look at it in terms of habitual nature. When I say habitual nature, I mean habitual nature of the conscious mind. You see, no matter what technology we have, we all have the habit of attaching. We all have the habit of views, building up views. So that's really the culprit here. It doesn't matter. You can throw 5 million iPhones in front of a person. If they're cultivated enough, they're not going to be moved by having a new iPhone. You know?
Yeah, okay. I don't know. This just popped into my head, and I'll bring it up. It's another little story, but I think it's sort of relevant, and it's totally not from where you would expect it to come from. I read this a long, long time ago. I think it was Clive Barker, and basically, I know, and there is sort of a teaching in this, but you wouldn't expect it to come from this source. But I think one of the demons in hell or something saw this guy, and he was pious, and the demon wanted to tempt his soul to essentially bring him to hell, right? So he sent this demon to torment and torture this guy, and the demon's basically messing with his house and doing all these evil things, and the guy just, like it kills his dog, and he comes home and he just cleans up the blood and kind of buries the dog, and basically just won't let this thing phase him at all. And then the demon basically goes back to hell and complains to the devil and says, I can't move this guy, and wants to take his place in the hells and be tortured instead of him. But anyway, yeah, it's just sort of an interesting story because it almost has a Buddhist flair to it with that state of detachment.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up after. And again, it's been a long. I think maybe I was in high school or junior high when I read it. So
I'm searching now through my my files. I did a commentary on the Tao Te Ching. I really didn't publish it, and I really didn't finish it because I started in 2005. Okay, and I wanted to read something about the. Here we go. Something about the desires in here. I think it was. Let's see here. Second passage of the Tao Te Ching. I had one written on the myriad things. I think it was number 13. I really liked that one. But here's good for about detachments and whatnot. This one was a translation from the Shambhala. It was published by the Shambhala Publication Agency or something like that. And I like their translation, but many people may not. So here, let's read this one. When all the world recognizes beauty as beauty, this in itself is ugliness. When all the world recognizes good as good, this in itself is evil. Indeed, the hidden and the manifest give birth to each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short exhibit each other. High and low set measure to each other. Voice and sound harmonize each other. Back and front follow each other. Therefore, the sage manages his affairs without ado, and spreads his teachings without talking. He denies nothing to the teeming things. He rears them, but lays no claim to them. He does his work, but sets no store by it. He accomplishes his task, but does not dwell upon it. And yet, it is just because he does not dwell on it that nobody can ever take it away from him. It's basically like everyone's worrying about too much of this or too much of that, or doing this or doing that, and really, the sage really holds nothing to him. Okay, this is the commentary. Was when all the world recognizes beauty as beauty, this in itself is ugliness. That's the phrase there. When all the world recognizes good as good, this in itself is evil. What a wonderful teaching it is. Every sentence in Tao Te Ching points directly to the afflictions and how to realize the mind, to relieve the mind from it. Who has eyes to see that, ears to hear that, the capacity to put down through it? The first two sentences speak of the problem of separation. When one labels something, they set it apart and create the perception of one and another, or one thing and then other things. Discriminating on things covers the nature of all things and results in deluded thinking. Okay? When one makes a distinction, it becomes a mindset of superiority in the perception of two separate things. In this case, these two sentences direct the cultivator to understand that the discriminative mind is that of separation in views. And to uphold such is to plant the seeds of more confusion about the true nature. It is saying to not look with the view of separation, to stop discriminating, and you will see the true nature. The next part of the passage goes deeper into the function of the view of separation. So this is all about detaching, okay? When we're talking about understanding detaching, so the next part is, indeed the hidden and the manifest give birth to each other, difficult and easy complement each other, long and short exhibit each other, high and low set measure to each other, voice and sound harmonize each other, back and front follow each other. It is not enough that we have attachments to the views we delude our mind with, but we also attach as a process of rising and falling, and call that the way of all things. The rising and falling of things in the mind is not the Tao. It is a process of that which we hold views of, and the holding of views itself. Hidden and manifest give birth to each other. Do not get caught up in what hidden and manifest mean. They are not important. Look at the process. Give birth to each other. This process says that as long as we hold on to views of birth and death, a me and a you, they will be the yin and yang always present, the hot and cold, man and woman, hidden and present. These 6 lines are talking about the process of the outcome of holding on to views which result in separation and assuring the cultivator that it is true indeed that one will create two. Just as long as you hold the view of there being a one, there will be a two and a three and the myriad things. This commentary goes on for a little while longer, but I don't want to keep a whole monologue on this. Basically, in the sense of this, we're having attachments, meaning we're having false views about things. And we're creating more views about those false views and attaching or placing emotions and views onto those emotions about the things we are experiencing. Okay? That's basically attachment in the raw sense. So detachment is not being moved by it. Not being moved by it means there's no seed that vibrates or radiates an attraction for these things. You're not dull either. Okay? You have to get that state to really understand the state. It's not dull state. If we're holding any views about the states we're attaining, then we're actually not getting or breaking down the discriminating mind.
I'll throw another curveball.
Your curveballs, man.
Well, I'm just thinking, even quantum physics seems to be confirming some of these Buddhist and Taoist, some of this Buddhist and Taoist wisdom that's been around for ages. Mm-hmm. And basically, I think it's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle that says until something is observed, it exists in all possible states simultaneously. It's only when something becomes observed that it collapses down into one state. Any thoughts
Very
on that?
Interesting. Can you read it again? Can you tell me again?
I'm not reading it. I'm just spewing it from memory.
Oh, okay.
So basically, if you're not looking, if there's no, it's sort of like that old, if the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a noise? But essentially, if something's not being observed, it exists in all possible states. And once there's a being to observe it, that it collapses down into a single state. Basically goes from a scientific experiment where they shot these particles through a slit, and when they watched the experiment, it formed a bunch of lines in the background, and when there was nobody there to watch it, it formed lines and waves. So basically, the particle existed in two forms simultaneously when nobody was there to watch it. But when somebody was there watching the experiment taking place, it would only behave in one manner.
Isn't that amazing? So imagine if we applied our mind, we applied our concentration and all our focus on one specific thing. You know how powerful that can be?
Pretty powerful.
Yeah, very powerful, man. Hence why we sit there and we focus and concentrate, and our concentration is without, how do I say? It's without attachment, meaning we're not focusing on, I want to get some transcendental meditation practice in. I want to transcend the world, and then you go back to the same crap every day. And then you want to transcend the same crap every day. You're not transcending anything. You're just playing a game of changing clothes. That's all you're doing. So, but when we focus on our Chan, or we focus on our energy in Qigong or whatnot, okay, and you really apply sincere concentration, meaning you're not being taken by sensations and views and emotions and whatever, and states either. You're just concentrating. You're taking all of that energy and putting it in one space, narrowing it down into one space. And then that power is so strong that if it's focused on long enough, its vibration goes higher. And it has a much more stronger, lasting, and powerful effect. I just found this chapter I was talking about from the Tao Te Ching. I really want to read this one to people, and I'm sorry that it's becoming a reading little session here. But I think this would be very very helpful because it talks right about about this attachment and detachment thing. Tao Te Ching chapter 13, both praise and blame cause concern, for they bring people hope and fear. The object of hope and fear is the self. For without self, to whom may fortune and disaster occur? Therefore, who distinguishes himself from the world may be given the world, but who regards himself as the world may accept the world. This is talking of no self. Both praise and blame cause concern. This means both good and bad occupy the mind, resulting in the next sentence, for they bring people to hope and fear, which means people create thoughts which are false about their lives, false views. The object of hope and fear is the self, means that which hope and fear are moving around in, being paid attention to, is the original nature, which is not a self, but only referred to as one, for the mind needs a reference point when cultivating, until it doesn't. If that wasn't true, Tao Te Ching wouldn't need to be written. For without self, to whom may fortune and disaster occur? This sentence isn't saying there is a self which must be a natural being and goes with the ups and downs. It is referring to the detaching from the ups and downs. If one seeks fortune, its opposite is disaster, misfortune. If one seeks balance, they are saying imbalance exists and thus will experience it. The sentence is trying to bring the mind to the mind, not the conditions of fortune, disaster, and duality. It is saying that if there is no idea of self to experience the ups and downs of one's emotions and conditions in mind, there would be no misfortune and the manner of fortune which is of a dual nature. The last part points to this exactly. Therefore, who distinguishes himself from the world may be given the world, but who regards himself as the world may accept the world. This means if you discriminate, you create the dual mind and regard things to be good and bad. Thus are the worldly person of materialism, and will result in receiving worldly things, desires, and such. But if that is dropped, put down, and there is no distinguishing between you and the world, all things are accepted, but there is no one that does accepting. It is just as it is, but without duality, a he or she, a fortune, disaster, etc. There is none of all that, but all things. And since the original mind is non-dual, all things are not regarded as all, or one. This is how it is accepted. It is a non-dual acceptance of all things, not produced and not extinguished. It's literally the total eradication of the discriminating mind. The Lao Tzu is really, really great. He's pointing right to the non-discriminating mind. He's pointing right to one's true nature. It's really amazingly funny that it's Taoism and Buddhism is talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah, the more I examine the two, the more the more I personally think there really, at the core, is no difference between them.
Right.
I used to really think that they're two totally separate entities, but I've sort of put that view aside.
And this is, our worldly views, meaning everything we see and live as, okay, is what we assume makes us up. That's what we make ourselves up to be. And understanding detachment here for this means understanding that the views we hold keep us revolving around the same circle, revolving around the cycle. What you've always done is what you will always do, and what you've always gotten is what you'll always get. That's when you're doing the same exact things. No matter what kind of clothes you put on, no matter which way you look at it, you're still looking at it. You're still doing the process of looking. You're still doing the process of making of views, of intellectualizing things to make it make sense for you, rationalizing things, making things to be quote unquote logical or whatnot. These are our own self-made viewpoints, and other people made them, and sometimes we believe in those too. Now, how do we detach? What is the process of doing so? It's so simple. It's not even funny. It's amazingly simple. Just apply yourself to understanding, or apply yourself to meditating. 5 minutes. That's all I ask people. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I feel like I'm on an infomercial. 3 minutes a day and your life would be a lot different. But it's true. Just trying to sit or stand or walk totally in mindfulness. And what the hell does that mean? Okay? It means you're not being moved. You're not worrying about, what's happening on the one corner of the world or another corner of the world, what's happening in government, what's happening in society, what's happening in your house, is the cat peeing on your couch? It's nothing about that. It's simply just you. That's where it is, and then the you disappears. You sit in meditation. If you like to do meditation, and you just do it in sitting posture, you sit in whichever way you're comfortable. If you can't do full lotus, you can't do half lotus, just sit where you're comfortable, but don't slouch over and don't recline. Okay, sit with your back straight. Don't hold it like you have a stiff board in your back. Just sit with your back comfortable. Put your hands whichever way you like. I'm being so liberal about this. Okay, just so people can get an idea of what it is. The Dharma, the teachings, no matter if it's a Buddhist, Taoist, or whateverist, is not fixed, but the foundational teachings are. Okay? So, meaning the methods you use, the expedients are myriad. You sit comfortable, sit up. Don't worry about your tongue to the roof of the mouth. Don't worry about this circuit or that meditation or that mannerism of how energy is moving. Don't worry. Just breathe. The breathing is so simple. We do it all the time and we barely focus on it. Okay, just be aware of that breath in and out of your nose. Take a nice pace, breathe normal, relaxingly, and then just breathe in and out. Don't worry about if your stomach is expanding, your abdomen is expanding, or if your chest is expanding. Don't worry, just do that. Sit and just breathe. That calming feeling, that settling down feeling, it's an amazing feeling. And then what happens? You want to do it more and more. Okay, and when you do it more and more, you start applying yourself longer at it. And that's when the fun stuff starts to begin. That's when you start realizing, hey, why do I have to take 5 minutes out of my day to do this? Why don't I just apply that state in everything I do? How do you apply the state? Well, how you are when you're sitting, do that in everything you do. Except when you're driving and you're doing mechanical things that you need to really put focus on. Do that. Don't drive a car and start doing calm breathing and then all of a sudden start hitting everybody. Well, I was meditating. It's okay. No. Just apply yourself to what you're doing. That means if you're mindful when you're breathing, if you're focusing and aware that you're breathing and you're sitting and that's all you're doing, then apply that aspect to everything you do. You're driving a car, that's all you're doing. You're just driving that car. Don't think of where you got to go. You're going to go there. You're on the path to getting there. You don't have to worry about what you're going to do when you get there. You know what you're going to do because you're going to get there inevitably. So you just drive. You're taking a shower. Don't think when I get out of the shower what I'm going to do when I get out of the shower. No, you know what happens when you get out of the shower. Usually, if it's in the evening, you get them ready for bed or you're getting ready to do other extracurricular activities. Okay? So those things are inevitable. You don't have to worry about that. It's all about not worrying about the things you're going to be doing. Do what you're doing. That builds up the strength for detachment. That builds up that mannerism. That's the process of it. It just happens. Really.
It's funny. I've got an interesting little metaphor right out my window here. It's kind of a stormy day, and the wind is blowing the leaves all around this tree. But the tree remains unmoved, and the tree doesn't actively try not to be unmoved. It just simply is.
Yes, that's it right there. Just be a tree. Okay. That's really it. This is so. I'm really giving out the most basic idea of how to do it, and it's not wrong because it's a basic idea. It's simply just the gist of the idea. And if you practice that, it gets deeper as you go along. And you'll start to understand if you follow that principle of not chasing after what will be, what was, and what's going on. Now that's it. You're just is. You are just is. Okay? It's thus. That's just how you're doing. And that's all that needs to be done. That basic fundamental will be the roots that branch out, and it'll be the trunk that grows thicker and wider, and it'll be the branches that spread out longer and farther, and it'll be the beautiful leaves that just eventually sprout flowers. Beautiful leaves and then fruit and flowers. That's just where it's going to be eventually.
Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I am attached to a 50-minute or so time limit, so we'll
very funny.
Call it a wrap for today.
Okay, so, I hope people get the basic idea. It can only be basic ideas in a 45 to 50-minute time period, but things can go further. Just request longer sessions or revisiting sessions that we've done before, and we can go a little bit more into methods of practice, and that'll be good.
Very good. All right, well, thanks once again, Len.
Thank you.
And everybody out there, thank you for listening to Expedient Means with Len Wei on Time Monk Radio. Please be sure to join us next week as we discuss transforming adversity. And as always, to quote the final chapter of the Tao Te Ching, the sage does not accumulate. The more he assists others, the more he possesses. The more he gives to others, the more he gains.
Oh, beautiful.
Sometimes those deep philosophical ones are taxing.
That's some good stuff. Good stuff.
Gold is gold, man.